Good morning. My name is Esperanza López Vázquez. I'm from the Universidad Autónoma del Estado de Morelos, and I'm going to present you my work about intergenerational transmissions and volcanic risk perception construction in Mexico. And this was made with these two colleagues, Elizabeth Ojeda and Imke Hinrich. So many people live around active volcanoes with the uncertainty of a possible big eruption, as is the case of populations near Popocatépetl in Mexico, which began a period of activity in 1994. The Popocatépetl volcano is considered a high-risk volcano. Research shows that the Popocatépetl traditionally presents intermittent activity with long periods of calm. Eruptive events of different magnitude have been recorded since the Holocene period, with several Plinian eruptions that affected large geographic areas. Important eruptive events were documented in pre-Columbian codices where the volcano is represented as a smoking mountain, meaning Popocatépetl in Nahuatl. Here we have a codex. It is estimated that it was born in 780,000 years ago. The first volcano formation was modified by being destroyed a part of the peak of the volcano called El Fraile. The Popocatépetl volcano, as actually looks, has about 23,000 years, and approximately 20 million people are settled within a radius of 70 kilometers around the volcano. A lot of villages are very close to the crater, in about 15 kilometers. Exposure to volcanic phenomena has led different studies to better understand the behavior and reasons why populations remain in these territories. One of the topics has been risk perception, understood as an evaluation of an environmental or social threat. A particularity is that human beings are capable of both creating and reducing risk. The personal risk analysis process is complex, and it is necessary to consider the intervention of different cognitive, affective, sociocultural, political, individual, and economic factors that interact in the process of interpreting a potential danger and assessing meanings to the environment. Studies related to the volcanic risk perception have observed a persistence of communities to remain in the territory despite knowing the exposure to volcano hazard. So this work takes up Berger and Luckman's approach to the social construction of reality, which states that objective reality needs to be internalized. Thus, each being goes through a process of socialization based on Hacking's arguments that social reality undergoes transformation over time. In order to address risk perception as a social construction, symbolic interactionism is taken as a framework and transversal approach, considering that it is one of the main foundations of social psychology of sociological tradition. Symbolic interaction is focused on the relationships between social institutions and the behavior of individuals, taking into account factors such as culture as framework of socialization, the institutions and the groups understanding social life as process in constant construction and reconstruction. Intergenerational relationships are understood as those processes of social interactions that are produced or take place between two or more generations. Intergenerational transmission involves the social learning processes of culture facilitated by the interaction of people belonging to different age groups and different social roles. generations are defined by the combination of behaviors and resulting from the interactions between age roles and social roles. So, the objective of this work, within this context, the main objective of this work was to analyze the social construction of the perception of volcanic risk, considering the exchanges of knowledge between different generations in order to carry out the theoretical mapping into Tela de Volcan on the basis of the symbolic interactions. So these figures summarize the contributions of Blumer, integrated with the proposal of Lopez Moreno and Alvarado, which represents the cross-sectional scheme of our study. The age roles refer here to the learning of the risk perception of a volcano, which are communicated and transferred. So we have here the social roles in one and age roles. Social roles when parents, grandchild, parents, children, teachers, students, age roles with all adults, youth, adolescents, all are constructing the volcano's perception with their territories and transactions. Mhm. So, a qualitative research with a symbolic interactionist approach was conducted. Focusing on symbolic interactionism, we observed that the risk perception of volcano from the symbolic attributions that community groups have built from social interactions over time through social learning process using the ground theory. To achieve this objective, first of all, the process of construction of race perception were described, finding several thematic axes. The intergenerational processes in which the perception of volcanic risk is constructed were analyzed, taking into account the continuities in the information handled and the transitions of changes in the perception of volcanic risk in the generations started. The articulations between the processes allow us to propose the theoretical mapping. So we have here the techniques we use concerning ethnography and ground theory. And here we have the characteristics of the sample concerning age, sex, and age. And we have 138 people uh, participating in this study. The research took place in the municipality set of Tetela del Volcán, a semi-rural community of approximately 20,356 inhabitants in the state of Morelos, in an area of moderate to high risk, volcanic risk. Different sampling strategies were integrated by key informants, by convenience, accessibility, by snowballing, and by criteria belonging to an institutional or community sector. The work was further carried out in a school because it is where the people with different social roles interact, particularly in the high school of Andres Quintana Roo. So here we found here is represented some of the systematic categorizations of the responses. We have an historical memory that are transmitted with all other people, and the popular narratives that talks about legends. The volcano was a warrior that was in love with a princess that was dead, and he was very sad and take her to the forest, and their love made them uh, that two volcanoes was born, the Popocatépetl and the Sleeping Woman that is near the Popocatépetl. It's another volcano. So responses to risk that are transmitted by scientifics and protected civil by the government, scientific technique knowledge that is transmitted with the universities, Practices and beliefs of rituals that are made to the volcano every different moments of the years, and sentiments towards the territory because they don't want to leave. That all this made the social construction of the volcanic risk perception. So we have here two speeches of an old adult and adolescent. So the first one says, our ancestors, our parents, as I said, from generations to generation have been transmitting to us, well, not to have any fear because there has never been any major damage here. So an adolescent that says, we were with my cousin. I remember my dad telling me that if we saw ash, we should never look up, that it could hurt our eyes. We got in because we were very afraid that something would happen to our eyes because of the ash. This is the perception of an adolescent, and a speech of an adolescent. So, we found a group called Missionaries of the Storm, those who are in contact with the spirit of the volcano, to whom they worship and make their petitions. Principles of the congregation. It is the elders who teach their children about the gifts of the volcano. They think that the volcano best shows gifts, and it is the temple of God and the great office of the angels who carry the request of humans to God, also called divinities. So here we have that two generations group that are identified as coexistent as contemporaries in the volcanic scenario. The pre-reactivation generation, constituted by older adults and probably young people, that before 1994. After 1994, we have a post-reactivation generation with all adolescents, and young people um, in cohabitation. So we have here the theoretical mapping that represents the group generation of pre-reactivation generation and post-reactivation generation. And in pre-reactivation generation, older people have a clarity of and firmness in beliefs and practices they made, and rituals they have, or the way of thinking they have concerning the Popocatépetl, and transmission to younger generations. Concerning adults, they have a credibility, respect of and older people, coexistent in the transmission between the oldest knowledge and the new concepts. And adolescents and young adults that have some credibility, they respect older parents, the ownerships, the peer-to-peer transmission, intergeneration. Intergeneration, we have that in older adults, they have some criticisms of aspects of modernity. They had disconformities due to the religious disbeliefs of younger people and sadness, and they try to protect their beliefs and rituals. So, in concerning adults, there are three subgroups: one that accept traditions, some others that question tradition and science, and the third one that accepts science, fear, and they have some ambivalence in their feelings. Concerning adolescents and young adults, they respect and have a partial appropriation of the knowledge. They have questions, doubts, fear. They want to be heard, and they have a risk prevention. This is the theoretical mapping scheme. We can source here the pre-reactivation generation, post-reactivation, the social roles that influence population beliefs and social knowledge population beliefs with cultural and environment, memory, territorial roots, and social identity, social cognition with meanings, knowledge, feelings about risk, and responses to risk, psychological stress, and coping strategies. In international agreements and conflicts with continuities and transitions. So, um, concerning continuities and transitions, we have that volcano is seen as a living being, breathing of the earth, and it has an activity and periods of rest. They identify benefits and they have admiration to the volcano. This is why it is necessary to stay here. That's what they say. The volcano has never harmed the people and will never harm them. Volcanic activities governed by divine will as well life and death. That's our way of thinking of the older people. The youngest people think that the volcano can become dangerous, so we must be vigilant. It is necessary to be prepared to evacuate if life is threatened. Scientific knowledge must be taken into account. So that's what younger people think. So, conclusions. It is important to take into account the story of symbolic interactionism in the investigation of intergenerational processes and social changes. We could find important dimensions and processes in the perception of volcanic risk of different generations in the Tela del Volcán. We were able to verify the strength of popular knowledge in the meaning of volcanic risk that they have remained and that in spite of the time that has passed, they still continue to preserve the traditions of the people. We also note that there is a generational and intergenerational conflict that allows us to observe that adults are divided between the traditions of their ancestors and elders and the changes that young people are adopting in the face to volcanic risk. So, some strategic reflections. We must promote dialogue between the different generations in order to have a balance between traditions and modernity. Risk perception must be studied in an integral way, not only considering risk. The different generational groups of a population must be legitimized so that the groups understand and respect each other, allowing the risk management not to go over community knowledge, and thus all stakeholders have their space for reflection and do not lose trust among them. So I think there is very important to take into account the way of thinking, the beliefs of people, and the young people, because they sometimes they think they are not taken into account when there's a preventing measure taken, um, and old people also think the same. No, so I invite you to think about it, to take it into account in a moment of changes. Uh, we have effectively climate change. We have also people living with these phenomena, and we need to think about it and respect the traditions and way of thinking of people. Thank you very much. This is my email and the two emails of my colleagues if you want to contact us. Thank you very much, and I'll be here if possible to if you have any question.